podcast of Frank, Jake, and Lunas with us here today. It's been a while since we had one of these. And because we have the full crew, we're just going to skip the news and notes. We'll save that to the end. We're going right into it with going all in as a contender. If you follow 3rd and 20 on Twitter, that's mostly Frank tweeting from that account, at 3RD and 20. I think there's an underscore at the end. Correct me if I'm wrong. Frank was tweeting today about going all in as a contender and what you should and shouldn't do. So I'm going to let him take the floor here.
Well, it actually all stemmed from, there was another tweet that went relatively viral in the fantasy space about, there was this guy saying, his tweet that gained a lot of traction was basically, if you haven't sold all of your first round picks as a contender, you're not actually trying to win your league, which is obviously a pretty divisive statement. But then I started looking into the thread, and this guy's strategy is quite literally trade every single one of his draft picks to try and win, which I think is kind of interesting. We can talk about that separately, but I think this is a relatively consensus take for us. I mean, we can talk about it more if you want, but I've got a lot of scenarios to go over. In general, I think that all-in moves as a contender are kind of a bait from a high level. Now I think that there's a big a really big asterisk next to that, but I think, at least personally, and this is the premise of my tweet, if you're going to go on as a contender, you need to get kind of an underpay on the players that you're picking up, because I've just seen so many leagues, and the Orphan League that we took over, actually every Orphan League that I've took over, the trades that put them into Orphan territory were completely overpaying for contending pieces and just piling on those late round picks. But I was just curious as to how, because I operate all my teams, I never make all-in moves. I'm always thinking future down the line kind of moves, and if I'm gonna make a win now move, I want to be getting a good trade. I'm curious as to any of you guys think differently than
that. Sometimes, listen, I like to win my leagues. If I am sitting at this point of the season, right? Like, let's take our home league, for example. I'm sitting at 7-2. I know my team has holes. My team is not really a championship contender. It's going to be one of you or Lunas's team that likely wins that league. I'm going to be honest with you. So from my standpoint, there's no reason to make an all-in move, because I don't think even an all-in move would get me to that point. So at that point, I'm almost considering, what can I sell and still have a shot in the playoffs? Because at the end of the day, it is fantasy football. Anything can happen. But at the same time, I'm looking to actually gain more value to eventually overtake you guys, rather than giving up my value now to just try to sneak one out. On the other hand, though, if you are an aging team that is a contender, sure, go in. Say, this is my window right now. The only thing I say is, when I trade away a first-round pick, I just have a caliber of player that I expect back. I'm not trading, for that aging veteran with a first-round pick. I'm not trading for that hyped-up rookie with that first-round pick. I want to, if I'm trading my first-round pick, I'm getting, a Garrett Wilson. I'm getting. I understand you might have to add more to that, or I'm getting the Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan or whatever running back that is to you, that is a investment as well as a win now piece. I think that's just the better way to go about it.
Yeah, I completely agree, more so at the end. So I know you guys know now, I've been quick as a contender to not quick, but more than willing to trade first. Especially being if you expect them to be late. But where I aim with whenever I'm spending a first, or whether it be a first plus, I'm not aiming for necessarily the win now player, if it's someone aging and older, even though he may be great this season. I'm kind of leaning more towards Jake's end, where I'd rather go for and pay and buy high for someone who's young and really good now, like he mentioned, whether it be a Garrett Wilson or a Waddle, Devontae. So, I'd rather pay up and pay whatever the price might be, 2 firsts or a first and a player. So then at least like, because you worry about it backfiring, and then like you don't want to end up on a team with a bunch of aging guys, you don't win, and then you don't have the chip. Like on the bright side, even if you don't win, you still have like that young stud player that you could always like flip in a year or two for more draft capital, or just keep them.
Yeah,
So that's where I land.
My thing about, all right, so when we say like going all in, I think the only player of value that I'm going all in for in like a contender sense of the word is Christian McCaffrey, right? Because he's just that game breaking guy. He's 101 in redraft until the wheels fall off. He's just a cheat code. And if you're getting CMC, that means you're also taking him away from a different contender. So you're just helping your chances even more. So that's the only player I'm going all in for. I've seen a lot of people make mistakes in the past, like Frank's talking about with the orphan leagues, where you're giving up a first plus or young talented players plus for the likes of Zeke Elliott when Zeke's already starting to, you're seeing the wheels start to come off already. Different aging wide receivers, like maybe Stephon Diggs right now might be in that example where you might get a solid playoff run from Stephon Diggs. You might not, and then who knows what his value is going to be at in a year or two. Especially when you consider like there's always cheap value. If you need depth, if you need players that you could plug into your lineup, there's still always cheap, valuable production that you can get. Like this year right now, an example is Taysom Hill. I picked him up for a fourth. He's been scoring me like 10 plus points every game, 15 plus. 2 years ago was Cordero Patterson. 3 years ago, I don't know. I'm sure there's other people too. Like there's always other people that you could pick up without, spending your first like this guy is advocating for. Because if you're spending your first, that player better be a big difference maker. He better be adding multiple points to your lineup each week at the top end, right? We're not trading first for, I don't know who to come up with now. Jerry Jeudy was who came to mind, but obviously that's a bad example because he's not there
let's
anymore.
Just say you trade like a bunch of draft capital for like Cooper Kupp. That's what like the kind of trades I thought he had in mind.
I think even
in
Garrett Wilson could be that example right now. If you're gonna, now I know you said that you liked him, but this is something that I wanted to hit on was that these going all in trades, like we all agree, throwing in the random back end picks, really terrible move. I think that's the worst thing that you can do in Dynasty. The easiest way to just blow up value in your team is just being like, oh, I want to get this trade done, I'll throw in a third. Like if you're doing that and your excuse is like, oh well, I'm going all in. No, you're just being dumb and using picks poorly and giving that guy a better trade when he really shouldn't have leverage. If he's a bad team with good aging players, that person's in a poor leverage scenario and they should be getting taken advantage of instead of getting a good deal.
And you could use that third for added depth if you're really going all in.
Right, exactly. On top of the fact that I think the third round pick hit rates are extremely underrated, but that's a different topic for a different day. I want to get into, because I really thought about this, and I said this in my tweet, and then I thought about it a lot more. You are correct in that if you were trading the bag, multiple first round picks, even just over a first round pick, like a first and a second, you need to be getting a difference making player. But at the same time, I'm actually like questioning whether that's really worth it to do outside of the real extremes. Like you said, Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Mahomes, like some of those other insane top end QBs, right? Like I think those ones really don't have to go too far to be like, yeah, well, they score a lot more than everyone else. But like Garrett Wilson, I think, is one that's really interesting because he doesn't. And a lot of I think the play is speculation. The thing that, yes, we all think he's really good. When Aaron Rodgers comes back, we assume he's going to get to this really high level of production. But what about instead doing a move, just trading a singular first for, instead of a top 20 dynasty asset, we go more from like that 75 to, early 50s or maybe high 40s range. So maybe someone like DJ Moore instead. Because I would argue, if I'm making a speculation play like Garrett Wilson, why should I be trading all of these draft picks and then also need upside? Yeah, he could go up to 3 firsts maybe, But if I'm already at 2 firsts, like, where is the upside there, right? Like, I need that deal to smash or else I get fucked. Like, and I like Garrett Wilson a lot. Like, I traded for him in one of my leagues, but it's just something I was really heavily thinking about, is that maybe instead just doing these 1-for-1 type deals where you have a shit ton less risk, it's way cheaper, and you actually have upside.
I think that's ultimately the gamble with like someone like a Wilson. Where I do agree, it's like if you're already trading through 2 firsts and something like that, it's like what's the payoff? Like if everything goes perfect, his value then is like 2, maybe 3 firsts or 2 firsts in a second. So I understand it in that sense. I just more so viewed it where I'm agreeing with Jake with like the less risk, I guess, is more so, even though yeah, you're projecting a lot, he still has like the solid floor of like he had 1,000 yards as a rookie. He had probably gonna finish with like 1,100 this year, where it's not like that like top tier production, but like it's not like you're like trading the first for you trying to go all in and a veteran that's gonna kind of be like washed out in like maybe 2 seasons. Where it's like if you're at least like buying high on someone like him, that like okay, if like the doomsday scenario happens, I don't want to chip, my old guys get old, I still have like this blue chip asset that I can always flip later on.
Right,
That's
do
where
agree with you there, where if you're trading the bag for Garrett Wilson, you like even if he doesn't perform to superstar level, you can still trade him for something. Compared to like someone had mentioned before, Diggs. If you trade for Diggs and he all of a sudden stops putting up 1,000-yard seasons, you're kind of stuck.
You're kind of fucked. Yeah,
you are more than stuck. He's gonna die on your team. Like,
I think he'll go into that D-Hop range, right? Where like you're feeling a little bad, but like you'll have good, early
yeah, JT
second.
will take him off my hands again.
But yeah, that's just something I thought about, and I mean, there's so many receivers that we can look at, and okay, outside of like Garrett Wilson, we can start to talk about more like these Diggs type players, where you're not paying 2 firsts for them, but you're not getting Diggs for a singular late first as a contender. You probably are given that first and second, if not even slightly more. But I'm going to assume first and second here, contender. But imagine you did that for like Michael Thomas, Odell, Thielen a couple years ago, right? Like there are a lot of times where, I mean, especially before we had Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase come on the scene, that wide receiver 1 spot was really volatile.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I've definitely this season rethought a lot of these. I'm gonna trade a shit ton for one player. I think I'm just restricting that to QBs, because I've always operated like QBs. So that's what I want to spend my shit on. If I'm going to the Gucci store, I'm going right to the QB section.
Wide receiver is the one other I kind of understand.
The thing is, though,
running backs unless it's a like CMC, tight ends, no, but receivers just because of like how long.
I'm the opposite. Why am I paying up for a wide receiver when I could go get, Adam Thielen this year for nothing? Yeah. But a tight end, there's only one. There is one tight end. His name is Travis Kelce. He's the only one that's better than the rest. If you can get him, I'm going to pay up for him. I know it's a little different.
Pitts comes.
Well, yeah, Jake, I see that's kind of my line of thinking, though, with these receivers, because if I want to pick up good receivers, the things that I want are late first-round picks and like mid to late first-round picks, because you're not, even if you go all in, you're going to get a ton of them making the championship.
If you have a rookie pick between pick 6 and pick 10, guess what you're probably picking? It's a wide receiver. I'm sorry, guys. That's just generally what happens. The quarterbacks are going to go in the top half, then the best running backs, and then you're going to get the receivers. So if you're a fringe playoff team to a early exit playoff team, you're going to get a ton of these young wide receivers. I'm not paying up to go get one when that's most likely what my first is going to turn into. And on top of that, the disparity between the positions, right? Receivers so deep. You can get a guy that's going to put up points. We've seen this exercise before with in the past with Brandon Cooks and now Adam Thielen, and you can get a receiver that puts up points for cheap. You cannot get a running back that puts up points for cheap, and you cannot get a tight end that puts up points for cheap, and that's why those are the positions are that I'm going to pay up for, as well as a quarterback. Receiver, I think you can just
James Conner, Zach Ertz.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that part of the statement, but I do generally agree with some of what you're saying, because like, I don't know, I think during your league, when you're in the Dynasty League, not startup, right? Because I think startup, it's a completely different conversation, but paying up for these young or even very old, because I actually kind of like this middle tier, but just later in the draft on the board, but just paying up for these dudes, I don't think it's worth it. Because instead of paying a first and a second even more, I can just pay a singular first and get some pretty solid players, or even less than a first and get some really solid veterans. Because I could pick up for less than a first Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, Tyler Lockett. You know, I think it might just be more worth scooping up those types of players, or giving up my singular first for Hollywood, for DJ Moore, you know, Ayuk, if you were able to do that. Apparently on the boards you were able to do that. I don't actually think anyone was.
Deontay Johnson, someone that I would say. He's actually been really good this year.
Well, with Deontay, I think you can even get a smidge back. I'm not even sure you had to pay the full first for Deontay with the slander on the Steelers' offense and how it's looked currently.
It's not really slander if it's true.
Deontay's been good, but only one touchdown.
Right, so I don't know. I've definitely rethought a little, because, I mean, honestly, we can also talk about this guy's strategy while we're on it. Because I actually, if you're going to go all in and make these types of moves, I actually kind of agree with this guy that you should just trade all of your picks and just get a super roster.
So you're saying if, like, if you're willing to trade like the first, you're willing to let go of the 2 through 5.
Yeah, basically.
Well, his part of his argument is that he's constantly trade. It's almost like a trade happy strat, where it's like you're using all those future assets to gamble now, to buy low on players now, and then be super active in the market, right? Kind of what you were saying. Get good high value young players and then flip them during the season and you know, profit here, get that extra second that you spend somewhere else, right? It's almost like a hyperactive strategy instead of having those picks sit aside in reserve, you know, because I think for a lot of us, part of it is it's just like a risk management thing. If you have a full slew of draft picks, your value is only going to go down so far.
The problem I have with that, though, is, and this is kind of, it sucks because it is kind of just a cookie cutter answer, but that's so league dependent, where if you're going to do this trade happy strategy, well, you better hope there are other people in your league that are willing to make a bunch of trades. Like, you can't, you're there's no like, oh, I can buy X player at X price. It depends on every league. So depending on other people in your league for your strategy to work doesn't feel like the best strategy for me. And maybe that is like risk management and everything, and like you're taking that leap of faith, and if you take that leap of faith, you reap the rewards of being able to make those trades. But if I'm constantly cycling through players, especially for higher pick values and everything, and I'm focusing on getting my assets from 2026 as soon as I get them and sending them out the door, I don't know. It seems kind of flawed for me, where the easiest way to pick up value is just let your picks appreciate.
It's also just a risky strategy, just because at some point, if you make a trade and it doesn't work, you're left with no draft picks to save you at the end of the day. Like Frank said, it's risk management, where at this point, if you have no picks, there's no safety net. So you make a bad trade, you're screwed.
Well, I guess the last point I'll make is that, and this is kind of my final argument, is against trading these draft picks and being super trade happy, almost like looking to trade your picks. Obviously, if you get a good deal on a player, you get a good deal on a player. And if you're a contender, you have more incentive to make that trade. So I'm not saying to not trade them, but I personally think that the draft is the best value creation item that you have in your fantasy leagues. I actually think it's slightly better than trading. if you hit on your picks and you don't even necessarily have to hit on the picks. If you find the picks in the correct ranges and buy them early enough before they go up in value, you can really stunk. So, like, I mean, let's say you are able to figure out that the 21 class was going to be better than it previously anticipated. Everyone kind of treats all the late firsts in every draft the same value until we actually know who's in the draft. And it takes until the offseason for that to happen. I mean, we see how much the board moves throughout the offseason. So
it doesn't really get up in value until like the actual NFL draft, because then like guys shoot up more of like, oh, like team fit, like someone who would have gone in the second round, like get drafted to a good situation so they get up. Because I feel like that's when the biggest jump happens with draft pick value.
Yeah, and I would make the argument that happens. It happens way, way, way more often, and the values of the picks go up way more than they go down when a draft class comes out of nowhere, but it just happens to be really good, versus where a draft class is shit. Because we saw 22 was a shit draft class, and there's still phenomenal players all over the draft. So that's, I guess, the other argument I would have, is that I just like holding these picks for a myriad of reasons. Wait, there was one more point I wanted to bring up, and this too. Why, if we are talking about contender buys, I have not mentioned, I think JT is the only person I've really heard mention this. We don't talk about the schedules enough. Because fucking Nico Collins can be a top tier wide receiver if he just happens to be lined up against the 3 worst defenses in the playoffs. I mean, take Mike Evans last year.
Yeah.
You could have waited half the year, bought Mike Evans, won your fucking league. Like
There was like one year, I forgot if it was last season or 2 seasons ago, Rowan was saying like what was it? Derrick Henry was playing like the Titans 2 of the last like 3 weeks when the
Texans.
was happening.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was playing the Texans, and then he just went berserk both of those games. Like it was.
Yeah, he had like multiple 200-yard games.
200-yard games, yeah.
Yeah, so if we're doing
that's a
contender
good point,
buys,
Frank.
why are we just like figuring out? Why aren't we being schedule merchants?
That's a good point.
I've seen no one do this.
Yeah.
Well,
you know what? Now that you've mentioned it, that's a
Especially if you're buying-
phenomenal idea.
If you're buying like a veteran and they're going up against like Cleveland and like San Francisco in like the last couple weeks, like
See,
All right.
you're gonna get fucked.
Week 15 players I'd be looking to buy are players on the Browns, players on the Chargers.
I'm
Who
probably
is
gonna
the
buy them if
Giants?
you're playing against the Chargers.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm
Chargers
saying. Like the Chargers are playing the Raiders, the Browns are playing the Bears. This is an interesting one. You have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle against the Jets defense, and Tua as well. That's going to be annoying.
Oh,
Then
What is that?
Guess what? You do have again Derrick Henry against the Texans. This is all.
Yeah, but they're not as
Oh,
bad.
it's a prophecy.
They're not as bad anymore.
They're not as bad. That is
History
true.
repeats itself. It doesn't
we can
matter.
Derrick Henry lost a step. The 200-yard game against the Texans, it's a lot.
Some
It's a
shit
lot.
just don't change.
Then if I'm
Yeah.
looking at week 16, it looks like CJ Stroud and the Texans would have a problem against the Browns. The Commanders receivers would have a tough time against the Jets. Cardinals, Hollywood
See.
Brown might be nice against the Bears. Well, don't the Chargers stink against the defense?
Leagues? Week 16 these days?
17, I believe. I believe it's 17.
Playoffs,
Stephon Diggs against the Chargers defense. Maybe you should buy Stephon
Yeah, maybe
Diggs.
we should. Like, well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, instead of being like, oh, well, I wanted to buy Devontae Adams, or oh, I want to buy this. Like, let's just find the schedule merchants, because a shit defense is one of the only things that can turn a shit player good. It's like,
Yeah.
other than that, it's legitimately about being good, unless the other team sucks.
Yeah, that's.
It's the only
mean,
explanation. I mean, it makes sense.
We're still. I don't know when most people have their fancy trade deadlines, but as we get closer, that might be an interesting segment. Just
Or, you know
looking.
what?
What do we
Let's
have in our
pencil it
league?
in for next
I
week.
feel
We're
like
gonna
we've done
come
it
up with a
before.
list
Okay.
of these motherfuckers for next week. How about that?
Yeah.
All right.
We should do like it's like for both contenders and teams that are like tanking, who would be like the buys for each, and what you would give up.
Oh, well, that's interesting too for the tanker ones, just because not even for a tanking team, if you're a contending team, just flipping a guy with bad matchups into a guy with good matchups.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me, that's worth doing.
Agreed.
Food for thought.
Depending on the value, yeah.
Okay, I guess my last point was just going to be like, instead of buying a hyped young player for 9 firsts as a contender and saying, I'm going all in, you could just kind of like trade nothing for a vet like Thielen.
Yeah. I think, I agree. I think it also depends, because I know you guys mentioned like the draft picks being the safety net. I do think to an extent, if it's like the right young player, like we've always been using the Garrett Wilson example. Garrett Wilson was projected to have like a 1,500 yard season this year, coming in before the Rodgers injury, or at least that's what people thought. He was in like the wide receiver 3 discussion. He is gonna maybe break like 1,000. He's probably going to finish between 1,000 and 1,100. I know his circumstance is a little bit different because people are anticipating Rodgers to get back. But I think we could just even take, like, let's just say like Devontae Smith or Waddle. I think if you pay up like whatever it be, the 2 firsts or just like the crazy price, I think the receiver still is the safety net because they don't need to have a crazy season for you to still like.
I agree. The problem in Garrett Wilson's case, at least earlier in the year, is that I think he had reached such a price tag that you were better off as a contender using those assets to get more points than just holding Garrett. Because I think it's different if your team is kind of on the fringe or you're a rebuilder. Yes, just holding Garrett Wilson is a phenomenal move. But he has so much value that you can get some serious points breaking Garrett Wilson up. Like, you can get Kelsey plus for Garrett Wilson. That could definitely be worth it as a contender.
Yeah. No, you're right. That part's true.
So, I think that's all I had to hit. You guys wanted to talk about anything else in terms of this general topic of going all in as a contender?
All I had.
It's the main thing. I mean, I'm excited to talk about the rookies.
All right, let's get into it.
Okay. So I'll intro this, but let me know if I didn't do it justice. We were talking before the pod about how now we're about halfway through the season. I guess a little over halfway through the regular season. And while we do have some breakout rookies like CJ Stroud, who we'll talk about in a little bit, Jahmyr Gibbs is finally starting to find his stride. We were talking about the rookies that are currently not getting that kind of view that we think will, I don't know if breakout's the right term, but will prove their worth with the remainder of the season, because we still do have a half a season for these rookies to show out. So I don't know who you guys had off the top of your list.
I think one that I'm very interested in, and admittedly I was high on him pre-draft, so that's going to be one of the reasons why. But Jalen Hyatt, we saw they tried to use him, but just weren't able to hook up, and now with freaking Tommy DeVito, it's just a nightmare, that offense. But fact of the matter is, he's one of the only receivers that's kind of made plays. He has been getting open, they've just missed him, and I just don't really think has gotten enough of an opportunity yet, and he's going to get that increased role. Yet it feels like the market for Hyatt is in this weird standstill where, like, he's not in the party with the players like Tank Dell, and even like Mingo, right? Like, at least Mingo has been kind of playing more, but he's still not worth nothing. So interested player that I would be thinking can put up more numbers than we had been seeing.
I completely agree with you on Hyatt. I think if he had better QB play this year, and I mean, not just the QB play, but like the Giants' offensive line being better to kind of let those deep routes develop more on plays.
Yeah, it's just, is he ever going to get consistent enough? That's the main issue.
I think he could. I mean, I think...
Yeah, you throw Caleb Williams on the Giants, it looks a whole lot different.
I was going to say, I think there's a decent chance the Giants are starting next season with Caleb or Drake May, and
very high at this point.
Camp. Yeah, I know, especially with the Cardinals getting Kyler back, because he's going to get them a couple wins, probably.
DeVito's not going to win a single game. I wouldn't be shocked if they went 0 for the next how many weeks.
Especially with Tyrod Taylor and Daniel Jones. Yeah, so Hyatt has a chance to enter next training camp with one of those 2 rookie quarterbacks, and he's the number one.
Dude, DeVito is
So
bad, man. Like I don't think I've
you can't
seen
play.
a
He can't play.
QB that bad actually get multiple like this many chances.
I
He's
thought
gonna
he was
get the
bad
rest
on
of the
Syracuse.
season.
Yeah, I thought he was bad on Syracuse. I don't understand how he made it into the NFL.
To be fair, he is a third stringer. He's not
but
even a second stringer.
Dude,
Still.
they're
but,
so
like,
smart
yeah.
for this though. This is exactly what you need to do. This is the way out
this
of
is
your
the tank.
terrible hole that you've dug yourself in.
True.
yeah, I don't think Daniel Jones is actual hurt. I'm kidding, but
yeah. All right. I have a few breakouts though. If you guys
Yeah, let's hit it.
okay.
Let's hear it.
go for it, JT.
So first off, I think quarterback. There's nothing really there. I think what we've seen is what we've seen. I don't really care what kind of season they have. Running backs. That's where I think is going to be our biggest chance of breakouts because that's just naturally where the biggest injuries are. All of a sudden you go from not seeing the field at all to being on it every down. So with running backs, I'll just say the easy one to say is Tyjae Spears. I think while he's got a solid value right now, and he's been on the field a decent amount, he hasn't gotten a workload that's been sustainable in fantasy, but it's Derrick Henry. He's getting older, has lost a step, I think most people would say. So Tyjae Spears is a decent one. I don't think he's all that great, to be fair, but I think he's just going to get his share, and that will just boost his value automatically. Someone that I think is solid, I really liked last year for the 2022 draft, but then he stayed for another year, which kind of upset me, is Zach Charbonnet. I think Zach Charbonnet has a chance to really boom his value here with Kenneth Walker.
Outsnapped Kenneth Walker the past few weeks.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker constantly battles injuries too. We've seen it before with the Seahawks with Chris Carson and Rashad Penny. Where you had the one guy drafted very high. I mean, Zach Charbonnet has decent draft capital. It's not like he's undrafted.
Both were second-round picks.
But we're talking about Kenneth Walker established himself. You would think Kenneth Walker is the guy, and then all of a sudden now you have this other guy bump in, and he just doesn't relinquish his share. I like Zach Charbonnet to bounce in there, and then one other running back that I was thinking about was Tank Bigsby. But we have not seen it all. Like we've seen a little bit, and what we've seen has just not been good. I think he's got multiple weeks of negative points scoring because he was just turning it over. But that's not the Tank Bigsby I saw in college. Tank Bigsby in college was when he get hit behind the line of scrimmage, he was still gaining you 3+ yards. I thought he was kind of a beast in college, and ETN's been one of those few running backs in the NFL that's currently being handed that workhorse bell cow load that's going on. So I mean, who's to say in bank that ETN's going to be healthy all season? And then if that happens, like if ETN gets hurt, I'm not concerned about Dearness Johnson being an issue for Tank Bigsby. So those would be the main running backs.
Tank already won the RB2 job.
Yeah. I'm not. I think he's just. What I'm saying is, I think he would be in line for like a massive increase. Like he would be that next workhorse. Then lastly, the only other like person that comes to mind is, and I don't really like him, but just from a pure value play, Rashee Rice. Like his value has been slowly expanding. I don't like him.
Is it still pure value play because he's been increasing a lot?
Yeah, but I don't care. I think as we go into the off season, right? We know Kadarius Toney's not good. We know Sky Moore's not good. We know MVS isn't good.
That's my one concern though with Rashee Rice, because right now, at least on Keep Trade Cut, the receivers he's around he's right behind Josh Downs, Deontay Johnson, and Jahan Dotson. It's ahead of guys like
none of
Kirk,
those guys
Hollywood.
are worth the first, right?
No,
that's what I'm saying. So. I think you can push Rashee Rice first. I don't think so. I don't think he is, but I think you can convince at least one person in your league he is, because Chiefs wide receiver Travis Kelce.
You're saying to trade Rice.
I'm saying get him now. Hold it out till off season
later on.
Once the playoffs end, you move him for a first. Maybe you have to put on a smidge extra to get that first, but I think you get that done.
That plan I like, because I was gonna say the part that I'd be concerned about. I think selling him after the season's good, because I'm sure he's gonna have like good playoff moments where everyone's watching and it's just going to skyrocket him more. Like we saw a couple years ago when like Gabe Davis had like a good playoff game, his value fucking like blowed up.
Hold on. Quick side tangent. Did you see there's like a Gabe Davis stat where it's like
A chart
yeah, where it's like the more
percentage of
people
who
put him in
stuck-
their starting lineup, the less points he scores, and vice versa. The
It's
less people
hilarious.
have him in a starting lineup, the more he scores. And it's just a very funny Gabe Davis. I forget what they call it, but
I'll try to find that later. But yeah, no. So I agree with you in terms of then
I'll
flipping
try and
Rice
put it in the
again.
doc so Frank can share it.
That's pretty funny.
After the season, because what I'd be worried about with the Chiefs, like entering free agency or like the draft, is them bringing in another receiver. Because to your point, and why Rice's value would jump, all the other receivers are terrible. So I'd be surprised if they didn't draft or sign someone. Even I wouldn't expect like someone like people always say like T Higgins. I don't think they're gonna have the money to pay T Higgins, but someone else maybe.
If T Higgins ended up on the Chiefs, that would be a problem for the league.
What's
He's
going
gonna
on, PDR?
if he's
I just put it in the
leaving
doc, Frank.
Cincinnati though, I'm guessing he wants like a pretty big contract, and I don't know how since he's gonna fit. Like they didn't pay Tyreek, but they're willing to pay a lot for T. I don't know. I see a team like Carolina overpaying for T Higgins or something like that, or maybe Tennessee.
Probably. Ooh, Tennessee.
Yeah, with Levis.
With Levis, that's interesting. In terms of rookies, though, I think you guys hit on a lot of them. I'll bring up a few more that I like personally. Kendre Miller is one that comes to mind. I think he hasn't really shown anything in his time. He was injured to start the year, and then he came back for a few weeks where he was supposed to be the guy, but now Kamara's back and he's getting the full load. With that being said, they did draft him in the second round, right?
I'll pull it up. I think second.
I think it was a second round pick. If not, it was a third. And Kamara's not getting any younger. I know they signed Jamal Williams, but I don't think
beginning of the third.
And I don't think that matters realistically. But he's getting there. Someone's going to have to take over this role in New Orleans, and I do think he's the next guy up. Buy low. Another guy I like is Mike Wilson on the Cardinals. I just think with Kyler coming back, they're going to get some nice a little QB bump there. Outside of Hollywood, they don't really have another guy that's an established wide receiver. I know Rondale Moore's been there and he's been okay. They have Trey McBride in tight end, Zach Ertz in tight end. I think they really need a guy to step up, and Mike Wilson has shown some flashes. See what he does down the stretch. And I think those are the only two guys that I really had that aren't the obvious. I mean, I like Tank Dell. I think we've seen a lot from Tank Dell. I don't think we really need to talk about him, especially after this past week where he went off.
Drive where he basically was just the Tank Dell show.
Yeah. And I think he has a really good connection with CJ Stroud, and that's not going away anytime soon.
He's close to, I'm pretty sure on Keep Trade Cut, he's in the top 60 Dynasty assets right now.
He's ranked
wide receiver. He's wide receiver 23, which even at that price, I like him. Because but another thing with him and Stroud, like their chemistry, Stroud is the one I'm pretty sure who asked the Texans to draft him.
Yeah, they got close at like the Senior Bowl and all that stuff.
Yeah,
I will say I've got one. I mean, Keaton Mitchell, what we saw last week, I have him snagged up in a good amount of leagues. I mean, just the speed, dude. I think it adds an interesting element to that offense that Justice Hill has not really been able to consistently provide, even though he's shown flashes here and there. I mean, I think the problem with Keaton Mitchell is that right now the people that have him are probably not going to give him up for a third. I'm not really sure that's happening right now. Because he led
for a single third, probably maybe
not. Two you might be able to. At that point, is it worth it? I'm not sure, but definitely someone interesting. And then
I was gonna say go ahead, Frank.
I'm just thinking, man, I liked him way back, and then as the draft season went on, I just felt like this scenario was just too crappy, and then I started slandering the crap out of him. But Sean Tucker, man, I feel like he's
Yeah.
got to get an opportunity with how
Rashad
shit
White,
his running game is.
Rashad White has not
White's
been that bad.
Especially recently, he's been playing better.
But like Sean Tucker, I understand he looked crap in the beginning of the season, but Chase Edmonds and Keyshawn Vaughn both got snaps in their last like couple games and were, as always, horrible.
No, they're terrible. Yeah, those two are terrible.
Chase Edmonds, I think with that performance like last week, he's probably got negative yards on the year. I mean, I just feel like this guy gets back on the field and gets a chance.
I do think he's going to get back on the field just because White's not a workhorse type, and I think he's better than those other two backs. So I do think he'll get a chance. That's what he'll do with it. We'll see. But I don't hate that because I think he's going to get touches. So my main one I was going to say was Kenji Miller and Hyatt coming in. I was going to ask you guys, is there any rookies that like you'd buy high on?
Puka.
Like you know that there's a premium, like just don't say like something like Stroud. Like Stroud now is like fucking like I don't know, like QB6 or something in Dynasty, but like someone like
Bryce Young,
you'd be willing to buy high, like pay the first plus for I don't know, like Puka Nacua, A-Chain,
Puka, yeah.
Zay Flowers, JSN.
Zay Flowers, no.
I'd do it for. I'd still buy. Bryce Young, Puka, Jordan Addison, probably Addison in startups more so than normal leagues. A-Chain, I don't know. I still might do it because I'm just a fucking crackhead.
One of the, I had two in mind when I said like paying up to get them. Well, actually three. It was A-Chain. Because even though his price is high, just like as long as he's with McDaniel, he'll be able to be utilized like perfectly in that offense. And Mostert's fucking like RB2 on the year. And so if you're thinking like A-Chain takes like the full starting role, whether it be like next season, he's gonna be a beast. JSN I've been trying to buy in a not in our league specifically, but in a different dynasty league. I've been trying to buy him bad. The price is still high, like it's still depending on where the first is, probably like value wise, like a 106 pick in this year's draft, 107.
I think more more towards like 108, 107 than a top sixer.
Yeah, exactly. Where like that range, I would give up like a 108 type value for JSN. I think like the breakout is like kind of starting to happen now. I mean, the Seattle offensively was a mess last game. He still had that one good deep catch, but he
can we stop and talk about JSN real quick? Because I'm just curious. Like,
sure,
JT or mainly Jake, because you haven't been on here. We had covered JSN, but are you panicked on JSN at all? What's your take on JSN right now?
Just hold. I think he's been. I think he's been fine. I think we've been starting to see the uptick that we want to see from the first round pick. Obviously, he didn't come in and come out to this blazing hot start, and that's fine. Not everyone does that. I think we've been spoiled with the likes, even this year with Puka coming out of the gates out of nowhere, and now everyone's just comparing him to that. And I'm like, guys, hold on. He's also on a team that has two established wide receivers that are both former Pro Bowlers, right? We have DK and Tyler Lockett there. Those guys are not going anywhere. It was always going to be a learning curve with JSN, and I think people had to understand that before they drafted him. I don't think you could have expected, him to come in blazing out of the gate, despite being, a first-round pick. I think you had to let him get in the system, really find his role, and really learn behind these vets before taking that next step. And I think we're starting to see it, and I'm not panicked at all. I'd be encouraged by what I see. Obviously, it's a disappointing start to the season in terms of points, but he's a rookie. That's what you can't always expect straight up points.
Yeah, I thought Frank phrased it perfectly in the last pod. JSN has kind of taken two dips for the exact same reason. Like he took like not like a big dip, but like people what are you saying, Frank?
That was JT who said that.
Oh, it was JT who said it? Because it was like after the draft, people were like, oh shit, he's going to be the wide receiver 3 in Seattle's offense because he's behind Lockett and DK Metcalf. Then the season starts and he's playing like a wide receiver 3 and targets behind those two. And then people are like disappointed again. I'm like, that's kind of what you should have expected coming in, at least early on. So he's someone. And the last person I was just going to mention, just because I think Laporta's price is kind of getting way too. I mean, he's tight end 1, so it's like going to be really tough to buy. I'm going to see at like tight end 5 price if I can get Kincaid at leagues. I think he's worth, depending on where the first is. Pretty well, just because I don't.
If you're saying Kincaid's worth more than Bryce Young, there's a problem. That's just not possible.
Yeah, just buy Musgrave.
Yeah.
Musgrave, I don't hate. Is Kincaid worth more than Bryce Young?
I'll tell you this much: the gap between Musgrave and these other tight ends that are ranked in the top 5 from a talent perspective is not this ridiculous margin. That's like a first-round pick that it currently is.
I agree also with Mayer, Michael Mayer. But I don't know. I think Kincaid has like a decent chance at being tight end 2 by like, I don't know, the end of next season or maybe a year and a half from now.
Yeah, I just argue that Musgrave.
Well, actually, with Brock
Jordan
coming in, I
Love
don't know, but
sucks. All right, this guy is. They cannot, and their running attack is not good right now. They cannot move the ball. Like, listen, they just have. The Packers right now are just like a Giants that looked a little bit nicer. They're like the interior decorated Giants right now. That's basically what the fuck they are. Like, it's just doesn't look as much of a clown fiesta, but they fucking suck. Like,
it's been bad. It's been really bad.
I like that one. That was good.
But yeah, I mean, it's the same end result. They just like, oh yeah, I take their roster, but.
Are you guys gonna try to buy Christian Watson at the end of the season?
Fuck no.
Or this off season?
Dude, someone can take him. I'm stuck.
Christian Watson. I don't think it's been his. Claypool. I don't think it's a fucking bum that tricked y'all.
I don't think it's really been his fault.
I know the thing is,
keep telling yourself that.
The thing is, he didn't trick
Jordan
us.
Love sucks.
I knew he wasn't good. I tried to trade him. Nobody wanted him. Nobody was falling for the trick. So did he trick us? No.
Wait, where's Shadrach? He's gonna pull up out of nowhere.
I still like Christian Watson. I just think you need a quarterback who's actually like half decent.
He only works when you have Aaron Rodgers that could throw that deep ball.
Yeah, but even like he had a solid rookie year and like Aaron Rodgers' like worst season in like a decade.
Yeah, but he still had Aaron Rodgers that could throw him the deep ball. It just worked.
Do you think Jordan Love is going to be the Packers starting quarterback next season?
No, I think if Christian Watson was on the Chiefs, he'd look insane. I think if he was on the Chargers, he'd look insane. I think if Christian Watson was on the Dolphins, he'd look insane. I just think he doesn't fit this offense.
See, I'm not that high, though. I'm not that high on it. I think he's, like, decent, but...
I mean, insane's a strong word. I'm saying he'd be a starting caliber player. He needs to be... He needs to have that type of quarterback that can fit his play style, and Jordan Love is just not that guy.
I think the problem is that Christian Watson was, like, expected to be this DJ Moore kind of a guy, and I don't think he's near that.
No, he's much more of an MVS.
Style of a receiver.
He's literally like MVS with a name.
He kind of reminds me of like I think the ideal role would be what like healthy Mike Williams was doing on the Chargers, but I think he's a little bit faster.
Dollar Store AJ Brown.
Dollar Store Mike Williams, which is Dollar Store AJ Brown.
That's funny.
No, Mike Williams at 5 and below AJ Brown.
Do you guys like Marvin Mims at his price? He's like wide receiver 50.
I don't mind Marvin Mims. He's been dead.
Yeah. I just honestly how he's still not out snapping certain players.
I know, and it's like his whenever he does get on the field, like he makes a big play.
Well, that's going to be the issue right now. I think this offense is now going to go completely run heavy, try to rely on a defense that's starting to play better, and play ball that way. So, like, I think you right now have to hope that he's going to catch a nuke, and make just big plays. Because I don't think there's going to be consistent volume with Sutton and Jeudy in the offense in his rookie season.
Yeah, but you can get him now with the hopes that Judy's off the team next season.
Judy
I think
is
you have
so
to
gone.
wait
It's not even
until,
funny.
like the last 4 or 5 weeks of the year.
Oh, because you think his value is going to go down a little bit more.
I just think at that point of the season is when we can see him potentially get like 80%, 75, 70% plus snap share.
Snaps.
I don't think that's going to happen until then.
That's fair. Yeah, no, that's fair.
And in that offense, that's what it's going to take, because you need that offense to be more efficient, and he needs to be on the field more. But, I mean, dude, I don't know. I guess the one problem I'd have with Mims is that I think he showed too many flashes that people know. I mean, people are still going to be asking for it.
Yeah.
Probably slightly ahead of where he was drafted at to get rid of him, to get rid of Mims.
That's fair.
Like I think
he has shown something.
I think at least with Hyatt, like he's kind of made some plays, but not enough to where it's like I think someone would give up Hyatt where they drafted him at. Not everyone, but I think there would be managers to do that.
So what, like a mid-second?
I think you offer an early third. Some people accept that for Hyatt.
Oh, I would do that in a heartbeat. I would do a late second for Hyatt, pretty easily.
I don't know about a late second. I like Hyatt. A late
I
second
like
is
Hyatt.
pricey.
Yeah.
I just think
I
a
don't
late
care.
second, you can get someone who's almost like a guaranteed contributor for a late second. Not right now, but you wait until the offseason.
Keep sleeping on him, man.
Dude, those
Hyatt
seconds
him.
carry weight. I mean, honestly, that's the fucking second we should be talking about right now. If people are selling these seconds for cheap, go fucking scoop them up. Because I'll tell you this much
I
right
don't
now.
think it's for cheap. I think Hyatt is worth the second.
I
do agree with you in terms of buying late seconds. But again, I'm saying when I say Hyatt's worth the second, I'm saying I'd pay the late second I won't say in a heartbeat, but pretty easily.
Dude, I just distinctly remember in some of these leagues, like the contending players that you can get for mid or late seconds. The very late ones is tough, but dude, I sold Darren Waller in a league for 207.
That's pretty good. He's injured again.
No, but at the time, I mean, even I guess that was a little bit of an undersell, but as a super rebuilder, I wanted him off. That was pre-Giants trade as well, unfortunately. But I mean, there's other players that you can get that are at least expected to make a difference for just second round picks. I don't know. I got Mims 12-team Superflex best ball for my holy shit for your 24 fourth. Yeah, that's especially best ball. Nasty trade. Good job. All right, news and notes.
Well, I guess we have one more rookie that kind of leads us into news and notes, which is Will Levis. What are you guys feeling on Will Levis?
Well, we talked about him last week. Would you take a first and a second for him if you have Will Levis?
Which I did.
Is random first? Are we assuming
Contender, both?
No.
Both contender picks?
I'm taking that.
Then no. I'd rather keep Levis
would
than
you
get a
take
late
that for
first and a
Justin
late
Fields?
second.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're taking Levis over Fields, right?
You guys want Fields over? I mean, Levis over
Correct.
Fields.
Correct. Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm saying. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've got Levis over Fields.
It's really not that crazy.
No, it's not. I mean, the
No,
range
I don't think it is.
I don't think it's crazy at all.
I think real life quarterback Will Levis is maybe better. I don't know. We've only got a 2-game sample out of him so far.
I mean, I just also think I have more faith in Levis to be a long-term starter.
I don't, because
At
we only
this
have 2
point.
games out of him. I mean, I'm sure Justin Fields probably
the
gets
sample size is
replaced
small, but
from.
you also what also is about to happen with the Bears? They're probably about to get the first pick.
Yeah, I mean,
Or the
Justin
second pick.
Fields'
Justin
time in
Fields is probably
Chicago
gonna
is
get
probably
traded.
over.
Guess
Sure,
where he's
but
going.
he's going to be a starting quarterback somewhere. Yeah.
Moon.
Don't
No,
say
he's
that,
going
Frank.
to Pittsburgh.
Don't say that.
He's going to be a starting quarterback somewhere, Justin
I'm
Fields.
telling
He's not
you,
bad
he's
enough.
the Steelers' starting quarterback next year, and I don't think that's going to happen, but I hope it does.
I think there's a better chance Daniel Jones is your
Dude,
starting
you
quarterback.
have to remember this is
Oh, that
no
would
shot.
suck.
You have to remember how the Steelers operate. We only really pick up players that we liked in the draft process, and that carries over to free agency and trades and everything. And we were at Justin Fields' shit, like every freaking thing. And Tomlin has said before how he wants a running QB. He spent the bye week last season or 2 years ago looking at the running game impact from QBs on the game. I remember that. That was hilarious.
You know who I think is going to be the Steelers starting QB next year?
Probably
Who's that,
Kenny
man?
fucking
Josh
Pickett.
Josh Dobbs.
Josh Dobbs.
He's coming home.
It's going to be
He's
Dobbs.
I
coming
want
home.
better
Back
for
to it.
Dobbs. No, I want better for Dobbs. I want Dobbs to be like
The
with
Steelers is
Andy
a good
Reid
situation. If Matt
dethroning-
Canada's gone,
I want Dobbs dethroning Patty Mahomes and winning a Super Bowl Nick Foles style. Like
goes from Brady and Foles to Dobbs and Mahomes.
So yeah,
I love
Will
it.
Levis though. I mean, the thing is,
He's up to QB 17.
Dude, the flashes, he's shown some big time flashes, but you still need a lot of polish. I think that's the issue. And that was kind of my take from last week, is that like Stroud and Young, in my opinion, both just show that NFL level polish. Well, I mean, Young obviously lacking those big plays and whatnot, that Will Levis clearly has shown. That's nuts.
I know-
So you
I know
wouldn't
we
take
already-
a first and a second? Both of y'all?
No.
To
Especially
me, like,
contenders, no.
just because of where I was able to get Will Levis, right? I got him in the middle of the second round. I think it was actually 206 exactly. So basically, exactly the middle of the second round. To me, there is no risk.
What is it? And like, I know everyone like talks. We've talked about the first game and how phenomenal that was, but even like the game against the second game of his career on the road at Pittsburgh, like that's tough on a primetime game. And like, I was kind of expecting a shit show because he's a rookie going into a tough environment. But I thought he like 22 of 39, over 260 yards. He didn't have a passing touchdown, but he had one pick. But the pick came at the end, and more so, what I was impressed with, I know they couldn't like finish it off, but like when he got the ball back late, down 4, he went down the field. Like he was able to get them in like a pretty good position late in the game. So I don't know. For me,
To me,
Levis
like,
is ahead of Fields.
I mean, I just am more comfortable with it. I don't like what I've seen from Justin Fields. He's put up a lot of fantasy points some weeks. I get it, but I just overall have not liked how he's looked. Like he's just losing games, right? He's not making the Bears a better team. They are a bad team with or without him. It does not matter. So to me, the Titans were much better with Will Levis than whatever they were, Tannehill or Malik Willis, whatever the hell they were using before. They look better. He's added an element to the offense that they didn't have before. So to me, it's just
No way he looked better than Malik Willis out there. You see Malik Willis dropping those snaps? Come on.
yeah, exactly. So like to me, I just like what I've seen. You probably got him at a low price. There's no risk. If he booms, you double that price. You get 3 firsts for him. If you're going to trade him after 2 games, yeah, it's a nice profit. I turn basically I profit a free first round pick. But I don't know. To me, I'm just going to hold and see what happens with him.
Would you sell him in a rebuild? Hard rebuild? Or just hold?
Hard rebuild, I'd sell him. Like if I was trading everything, I'd just trade him as well. Why not? Start over. Start from scratch. Just because I think there's going to be QBs coming up in future drafts that are more of a sure thing.
Next year's first round is starting to look really fucking good. More so with some of the other receivers kind of coming up.
QB receiver looked pretty solid.
Like I think we already know like Marvin Harrison's probably like a top 4 pick. It looks like Keon Coleman might be a top 10.
Yeah, now it depends on if any go back or kind of potentially like come out earlier. But yeah, dude, the receivers are fucking nice. There's a laundry list of really good ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this receiver class is sick.
All right, let's get into
Okay.
some of these other
So
news. How about CJ Stroud? I mean,
he's him.
I saw people are rejecting 2 firsts, 2 seconds for CJ Stroud. One of the ones being top 3 pick in this draft. I saw on Reddit everyone was saying to reject it. Everyone consensus reject it.
Yeah, I don't blame them for rejecting. You have to pay like QB5, QB6 price to get CJ Stroud. You're not gonna get anything less.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a
Because he's doing all this like 80% of his O-line has been like injured for the year. It's his first time like as a rookie playing in the league. Like I know we love Tank Dell and Nico Collins is having a nice season. It's not like he has like this like insane group of weapons like where like Burrow came in, had like Higgins and Chase, Jalen Hurts with AJ Brown, Devontae, Tua with his receiver. Like they're good, but like they're not great. And he's putting up what he's putting up. I don't blame anyone for not accepting that. There's like a short list of quarterbacks I would take in Dynasty over Stroud.
It's fucking expensive though.
yeah.
I'm just not gonna be the one buying, but I get it.
I'm not gonna be, but like no, I'm just saying I don't blame the person who has him for not accepting that. Like, yeah, it's gonna be expensive to get. It's also expensive to go and like I don't know buy like Justin Herbert. You know what I mean? Like it sucks, but you
Yeah,
have to
I
pay
do
that
agree.
premium. Right now he's QB7. It's he's behind like the main Mahomes, Hurts, Josh Allen, Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Herbert. He's at 7. He surpassed Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is now 8. I think him versus Lawrence might lean Lawrence, but I get it. Like the reaction off the 5 touchdown game.
It feels like a force for me. He just doesn't offer enough rushing ability for me to be like, yes, 2 firsts, 2 seconds for CJ Stroud. That's maybe even an underpay. I think he's very good. I think he should probably be in your top 10, but I would say more of like the fringy 10 than anything else.
I don't see how you can have him after 8 unless Kyler comes back and he's like an absolute monster.
Yeah, Kyler.
Because I understand Lawrence ahead of him, but then after that, the QBs, the 4 QBs behind Stroud and Lawrence. It's Tua, Anthony Richardson. It's kind of wait and see. You can't have Richardson ahead of him now, but like I guess there's a potential because we didn't really get to see him like fully go. Kyler Murray, then Bryce Young and Fields. The only 2 I see with a chance of passing him are Kyler if he just comes back and is a beast, or if Richardson, like he's talented and he's more physically talented, not nearly as good a passer, but I guess
I feel like Tua is fine ahead of him too. I'm not against Tua.
You would rather have Tua than Stroud?
I think Trevor Lawrence is ahead of CJ Stroud, right?
I'd take him.
And Trevor Lawrence is 8, Stroud is 7. But I'm saying I'll give you Trevor Lawrence ahead.
Over Tua.
Same.
I don't know.
The thing
They're
is,
close.
I
would value them about equal.
No, I don't know. I Stroud's good. You can't hate on Stroud. I think that might be a little bit too expensive. A top 3 pick this year and another first in 2 seconds. Like, dude, I don't know about that.
It was a top 3 first.
It will not guaranteed. The guy's pick. He said it's 102 right now, so I'm assuming it's. But
okay. So when I said like instant no, I just heard 2 first, 2 seconds. So I just was assuming mid for both. If it's 103, it's different. Because then there's like a very good chance you're getting Drake May or, especially if it's 102, if it falls to 101, obviously Caleb. That makes it tougher. So I see your side now more. I was assuming mid for each of them.
All right. So that's CJ Stroud. Next up on our list, we have Josh Dobbs, who doesn't even know half of his team's name. he's going in there, and Kevin O'Connell is literally breaking down what the play should be to him after he says the play name. Goes in and helps the Vikings win a game with some electric. He ran for touchdowns, passed. I don't know, guys. Josh Dobbs, who didn't look that good for most of the time in Arizona, just comes into Minnesota and is like, "Yep, I'm the guy.
Dude,
I'll help you guys."
He didn't look good for his start in Minnesota either. I'm pretty sure his first three plays were like safety, fumble, six, like fucking.
It was a roller coaster of a game.
He's been a fantasy legend this year.
He got that receiver Osborne. He like got him murdered. Like
Oh, I forgot about that. Was a hospital ball and a half. Jeez, I forgot about that.
And then he comes out there and he's like, "Nah, I'm prime Cam Newton. Watch out!" And then just starts going crazy.
Dude, he's clutch. So what was like? We're assuming he's going to be the starter in Minnesota for the rest of the season. So, there's that. It's kind of like one question, but just like two parts. One, do you guys think he's a starter on a team next season?
No,
Two,
I don't know.
You managed to do every answer in the book there.
You're like, yes. No.
I thought you were gonna ask, is he startable? And I was like, yes.
No, wow, he's starting. Yeah, in fantasy, he's like QB 11 this year.
He's top 10 in expected points per game as a quarterback.
I'm more so, is he starting in the NFL next season? And does he have what's his dynasty value? I think he could be a bridge QB. Maybe if a team drafts a rookie that's not Caleb or Drake May. He's kind of the quarterback that starts the first few games before the rookie. I have my doubts about him being a full-time starter next season.
Yeah, I would not.
Oh, he's not a full-time starter.
Yeah, no shot.
I mean, if we're thinking like Justin Fields and potentially not getting a starting chance, like Josh Dobbs.
I mean, I think Justin Fields is going to get a starting chance, but I think if he doesn't do well in that year, then he might be in trouble. No, my guess for Dobbs is bridge quarterback.
Yeah, he's got to go the Taylor Heineke route and start picking crappy young starters to sit behind.
Well, speaking of Taylor Heineke, he's on the other side of the field, and Arthur Smith last week benched Taylor Heineke for Desmond Ridder, and you thought, oh, this can't get worse. But Arthur Smith is capable of anything because he made it worse. The Falcons were playing against Josh Dobbs and the Vikings, and they managed to lose the game despite basically everything being in their favor. I mean, I know they didn't have Drake London, but other than
they
that,
don't fucking throw it to him anyway. It's like
yeah. Like there was the usage of Bijan Robinson within the 5-yard line is incredibly low for someone that you spent a top 10 draft pick on. The sequence of plays going on in the red zone
inside the 5 this season
is ridiculous. It's just they spend all this draft capital on these great skilled players, and then you know who's like your leading receiver? It's Jonnu Smith for 5 receptions, 100 yards and a touchdown. The same Jonnu Smith who the Patriots could not use. Like the Patriots gave them a ton of money, and we're like, yeah, we don't want Jonnu Smith anymore. We'll just take Mike Gesicki and we'll ship you off for way less than what they got him in free agency, but way less than what you should be worth, and we'll just give you to the Falcons. Like, Jonnu Smith's not good. It's just Arthur Smith doesn't make sense with his play calling. Arthur Smith is not a good head coach.
No, he's I'm going to be rooting against the Falcons for the rest of the season, just so that I hope he gets fired. Like, did you see that quote he said about Bijan? Like, it's like his impact.
I saw he had a 5-minute quote. And
this is so funny, and he didn't say anything of substance.
I've got it here.
He didn't say anything of substance.
Yeah, wait, I didn't know you could do this.
Yeah, dude, I just figured this out live. This is gonna upgrade the pod tremendously.
This is very nice. Not having to go
and then like he says about Bijan, like his impact away from the ball.
This is so funny. This Arthur, they asked him. Let's see.
He sounds like an idiot in every conference.
Basically, I saw a tweet that I forget. I'm not sure if it's 19 plays, but I saw a 19-play stretch. I think it's the Falcons' last 19 red zone plays. Bijan has gotten the ball once. And when you look at the list of play calls, we've got third string tight end screens. We've got fucking like goal line
we're running
fades,
jet
random
sweeps
players.
with Johnny
Yeah,
Smith.
We've got fucking
most
Scotty
infuriating
Miller targets. Like
The most infuriating one was they had first and goal at the 1. There are 3 plays where, and Bijan wasn't on the field for any of it. It was a Jonnu Smith end around, a Jonnu Smith end around, a Tyler Algier run that got stuffed, and then another Jonnu Smith target. And they didn't score. They had to settle for a field goal and lost by like 3.
I have not listened to the entire 5 minutes of this. I think I made it about 2.5 minutes through, and I like the shit that I don't even know what he's saying. Like it's
he's like
hold on, I'm gonna
he's
play.
literally like if Michael Scott from The Office was a head coach.
That he does or doesn't bring in the red zone that's kind of led to him not getting a lot of the work.
Well, I think a lot of it, again, the results are what they are. And Mike said this is kind of mine, I'll give some context to it. Because again, a smart friend of mine too, we were talking about nuance and context, and sometimes, 2 things could be true at once. One, when you haven't gotten the results you want, you should be criticized and be objective. And I talked about being objective. So what does that mean? So you got to go look at things that didn't work. Why you did something, what your intent is. Okay, well, why is the result? So you got to look at your mistakes and your failures and say, all right, this is what our intent, what you're thinking about.
All right, can you pause it for 1 second?
Fix that. And that's
all right. So we're 45 seconds in, and so far what we've gotten from Arthur Smith is we suck, and we're looking into why we suck.
Yeah, well, there's nuance, and then there's intent, and then there's, well, what's the intent if the result doesn't work? Both things can be true. We can suck and not use Bijan.
Yeah. All right.
you got to be really honest. That's the only way you improve. So whether you're coaching or you're a player,
It's the only way you improve is to keep him off the field. Both things can be
or
true.
you're in any other industry, that's real, and that's what we strive to do every week. Obviously, we've never thought of perfect. So you look at the red zone. We've had 28 trips. We've scored touchdowns on 14 of them, so that's half, 50%. Not where you want to be. You obviously want to score every time, but historically, if you're in the mid to high 60s, you're usually up there leading the league. Some of the years we were really good in Tennessee, we were damn near at 75%. But that's kind of, you want to strive to be 100. That's what you're aiming.
And how many touchdowns did Derrick Henry have in that one?
Like
A million. The guy was like 2 touchdowns a game.
Lewis, if you don't know, Arthur Smith, an NFL head coach, way more knowledgeable than you, is saying that you need to score points to win games. It's like Trent Dilfer said. You can't win if you don't score. If you don't score, there is no point. So
do you see the quote? Do you see the quote he had about Bijan? It was so funny. It was like he said, like, his impact away from the ball can open things up. And I saw like the top reply. It was like he's talking about Bijan like he's like an off-ball 3-point shooter. He's your fucking running back.
50 there, 28 trips. And other than we've had to kick field goals 9 times. 2 of them were situational, win the game, right? Green Bay, Houston. So those are 2. So the other 7, we had 3 fumbles. Right down in Tampa.
Yeah, Desmond Ritter's fault.
Lot, turnover on downs that we had down in Jacksonville to try to cut it, 6.5 to the 4th down on the sprint out Drake. So you look at all this. So we have 99 plays, give or take, and that's including things that have been nullified by penalties, whether it's offense, pre-snap, or even defensive penalties. So you'll say, what's your intent? Where you're targeting? Right, so we have a lot of guys that we think are good players on this team. So it's not just Bijan, but it's all those guys. So a lot of times in the drop back, maybe the number 1 read was Kyle, maybe it was Drake. Well, they have to say they took it away, and you've got a pressure attacker on the other side, so the ball went there. Or unfortunately, you got sacked, or something negative happened.
I'm really happy Arthur Smith explained how football works to millions of football fans.
Literally, it's the dumbest response ever. It's the reporter going, "Hey, you spent a top 10 pick on a running back. Why aren't you using him in the red zone?" And he spends like 5 minutes, like not even answering the question, just pretty much saying, "Yeah, we suck in the red zone." It's terrible.
And then he keeps going, what's the intent?
So having said all that, that's not an excuse, so it's just reality. And the intent is, he, among other people, and we've been in sync, it's been pretty good. And there's been some zone reads, that's been a really good play for us, right? So play, if he hands it, going to him. Well, we pulled it, and that's been a pretty positive play for us down there.
Talking about the Desmond Ritter zone read
situation, Algier, he's been pretty damn good on goal line runs, short yardage. Again, nothing's perfect. And then where you're using other guys. Some of the times you build in run alerts. Maybe you're going to CP, maybe you're going to Bijan. Jonnu or whoever. And so you look at it and you look at 99 plays, not all of them count because there's penalties or some of them in 2-point. It's been pretty balanced.
Yeah, we weren't talking about the penalty plays.
He's been at the tip of the spear at most of them, and the ball hasn't gone to him every time. It's not going to go to every player every time because we've got a lot of good players. So it's my job to make sure that we're better than 50%. And that's what, ultimately, we got to score more points.
And you're not at 50%. You literally said it, that you have to be better, and it's your job.
And the opponent, we want to strive to score every time we're down there. That's how it shakes down. I can get a lot more verbose, but don't want to.
And he can get more fucking verbose than this. Like, this is ridiculous. I don't even want to, like, and this is half of it.
Yo, Frank, wait, can you bring up the tweet I sent you guys? It's like the last message in our 3rd and 20 Twitter group.
Oh, dude, you're making me go. Can you just put it in the doc? I mean, come on. Make it easy on me.
Okay. Yeah. Wait, JT, you doing it?
Yeah,
I can do it quick.
But yeah, that to me, that whole press conference, I think is it's a healthy sign. It's the good big step in the direction of Arthur Smith getting fired and the Falcons players being free from the Arthur Smith curse. Yeah, I mean, what the fuck was that?
So bad.
Because like,
that's why I'm
now, Frank.
let me see this. Is it the top one or the bottom one?
Bottom one.
Here we go. Oh, geez. I saw the top of it. I'm already excited for this.
This was so funny.
Reporter to Arthur Smith. How did you lose to a team with essentially their 4th-string quarterback, mostly Madison at running back once Akers got hurt, and them having their wide receiver 4, 5, 6, tight end 2, and 3 running routes? What can I say? They used my own strategy against me.
It was so funny.
Yeah, this whole season, this is starting to turn into a clown fiesta. And I'm happy for it because this is just... Yeah, it's just terrible. Yeah. There's just no explanation. I think at this point he's gone so far into this battle that he like wants to use every skill player that exists on his roster instead of abuse the OP good ones. That now he's just gonna keep doing it until he gets fired. He's not gonna change.
I wonder if like any of it's even just like pettiness or just like ego. Like it's like because people have been like kind of like harassing him about the Bijan Pitts usage, and he's like, "Watch this, Jonnu Smith end around," and then.
No, like, I honestly think that's happening. I honestly think that his ego and like the vibe that I'm
he doesn't want to cave and like say that like everyone's been right.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he's not a smart guy, but he is so in take lock that now he's just gonna keep doing this to try and prove how smart he is. And now whenever they win a game by doing some Jonnu Smith end arounds, he's gonna have the biggest smirk on his fucking face. But
yeah, no, because it's gonna end up being like because people have been asking him all year, like, hey, use like your offense should be focused around London, Pitts, Bijan, and like those three should be getting like heavy majority of the touches, and then like and that seems like the obvious solution, and so I don't know.
But the fact
I don't think it'd be ridiculous if those three combined for 80% of that team's touches on offense. You just 80% to just those three. I mean, all right, 80% is a lot, but like
what? I mean, like you see teams like they just like focus on like I don't know. Look at the best offenses like Miami. It's like I feel like 80% of the touches are Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, and their starting running back. Like it's doable. It's feasible. It's what you should do. I don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, that just brings me to the point I was gonna make. It's like, dude, the fact of the matter is with this Arthur Smith offense. At what point are you going to win a championship with it in Atlanta? right?
I
Like,
mean,
No.
where is
never,
the range of
but-
outcomes where that happens? Like, I legitimately think they have to have the best offense in the league by a decent margin to be able to win games against the top teams consistently. Like, unless their defense is out there going crazy, like... And, I mean, part of the argument against those Titans teams were the fact that they had to be that insanely efficient, you know, grind the clock with the run game type team, or else you can't compete with the Mahomeses and whatnot. You just can't live in that world. You know, they put up 35 on your ass and you don't have an answer. And I think we just have like now like not only a shittier version in Atlanta, a shittier version that now Arthur Smith has decided that he has this fucking take that he's going to prove he's smarter than everyone by using his suboptimal players.
Yeah, no, it's frustrating.
It's just weird, dude. It's just weird.
Lastly, from that game, Cam Akers did officially tear his Achilles. I think it was the other Achilles, though. It wasn't the same one, which I don't know if that's worse or better, but obviously very bad for Cam Akers. I'm willing to say he's essentially going to be toast after this. He did come back super quick from his other Achilles injury, but if we're talking about one Achilles injury being like an Achilles tear being the death of a running back, like now we're talking two and potentially on both ankles.
Yeah, the fact of the matter, he's going to be priced as if he's just completely cooked, though, too. So I think he's still worth holding on that IR spot.
Yeah, I mean, you just there's nothing else you can do. You just jam him on the IR and just wait.
Yeah, I'm just curious now. I think they announced Ty Chandler is going to be the number 2 guy. It looked like Cam Akers was going to start eating into Madison's workload. Madison clearly has not been a good running back. Any viability from Ty Chandler or any of these other running backs to where you're potentially interested in trying to acquire them?
No.
Yeah. It's
I never really liked Ty Chandler in the first place. I did just pick up because he was literally free and I had Cam Akers, so I just moved Cam Akers to my IR. I picked up Dwayne McBride just because he's free, but I'm not expecting him to really do anything either.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Ty Chandler's he's interesting because to me, he could be a Kyren Williams type player, someone that I just didn't think was ready to play out the gate, but did show some flashes. Like, to me, Ty Chandler was just insanely inconsistent, but his highs are really fucking high. He has some brilliant plays for UNC, but to me, at UNC, most of the time, he was a below-average running back. I'm just curious to see. He's had some time in the league now to figure it out. Maybe he's just improved and now can...
Do you know how old Ty Chandler is?
No.
He's 25.
I mean, that makes sense.
Does it? It's his second year in the league.
Yeah, second year in the league. Came out
He's
with
a guy.
23 as a senior.
I don't know. That seems old for me, especially in running back second year in the league.
Dude, I think that's one thing that's interesting is that I mean, you look back at the NFL like during the 2000s, there was a lot of more running backs I think that came onto the scene later in their careers where now I mean, maybe it is a trend that's just going to stick around, but I do think that history will repeat itself in some regard, and not every single running back that doesn't break out in the first couple seasons can't break out later into their careers. I mean,
look, maybe I don't think Ty Chandler is one of them.
Yeah, Ty Chandler's not one of them. That's more so for like an AJ Dillon or maybe like we saw with Tony Pollard. Not great examples, but
yeah.
I don't know though, because with the committee style, they may just get more touches if they're good nowadays. Earlier.
Yeah, and the thing is, like the only person I could think of recently who's like, oh, he's actually putting on solid stat line currently is Deontay Foreman, but he had his moments in the league prior. Like it wasn't like all of a sudden he's just popping up now and is
I think
performing.
one that would be interesting is Jalen Warren right now. If
Okay.
eventually the Steelers don't pick up Najee's 5th-year option and he's in a spot where he's not in this like Batman and Robin type scenario, could be someone that like the Steelers will probably pick up another back, but if that back sucks, he could see a lion's share of the workload.
Yeah, I like Jalen Warren too. For that reason. Yeah, okay. So that's it for the Vikings and Falcons, which I mean, it was a weird week, but it's funny that that's what we spent the most time talking about. And then lastly, came out today, or maybe yesterday, I don't know. I'm losing track of time. Kyler Murray, he's back. We've talked about him, but it sounds like he will be the quarterback for this week for the Cardinals. So I don't know. To me, I'm not expecting a whole lot from Kyler, but
right. I was wondering if you guys thought, a lot of these QBs we've seen come back off these long-term injuries or long-term hiatuses in the case of the diddler, Deshaun Watson, really come back and struggle. I was curious what you guys thought with Kyler Murray coming in, if he's just built different.
No, especially with how mobile he typically is to be effective, and his injury being that knee injury, I don't think it's going to happen right away, or he's going to be.
I think it depends on what the expectations are when he's coming back. If you're expecting him to come back and be like prime Kyler, where he was like a top 5 guy, no, I don't think that's happening. But I think he can put up like high-end QB2, maybe low-end QB1 numbers. The Deshaun Watson situation was just kind of weird. But we saw Burrow come back from like his knee getting completely destroyed and look solid coming back. Obviously, it's different because Burrow's less dependent on it. But I don't know. I think he'll be pretty solid. Like Josh Dobbs was,
and Burrow had Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to help bail him out. Like Kyler's
no, it's true. But I mean, like I just more so mean in terms of like Josh Dobbs was putting up solid fantasy numbers in that offense. I think Kyler can be solid.
I will say, I think Kyler has an inherent advantage that it just feels like the expectations are lower for him than they were for someone like Deshaun Watson. The Cardinals, I mean, this team
Deshaun
sucks.
Watson had just, and also Deshaun Watson had just gotten like the biggest contract in like NFL history at the time.
Right, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know, like, because obviously if he comes out and lights it up, Kyler's going to start heading back towards the top 5 Dynasty QBs pretty quickly. I mean, he's basically been there for the people that actually have him, at least to me.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe not top 5, but like between like that 7 range, yeah.
Yeah, but who had Kyler Murray and was trading him for like QB 10
No,
price? No one's doing
I don't think yeah, no, especially like you didn't want to trade him after like he had like his first year, and even then like on a per game basis he was like QB 11 or something during like his down year.
The only trades where you were getting Kyler Murray at that kind of price, the other dude was getting a better quarterback back.
Yeah, or like similar to your
right.
So
I don't know. I'm excited to see him.
I don't have anything else to add to this episode. Do you guys?
Nope.
Nothing on my end.
Yeah, so if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Hit that like and subscribe button. Hope you enjoyed. We'll hopefully catch you next Tuesday. Sorry for the Wednesday sode, but hey, shit happens. And